What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 66 of Nintendo Noise, Flip Screen Games' weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friends and co-hosts, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
Mr. Chuy Plays.
Goodbye.
And that's it. Sierra's not here this week.
Oh,
But it
sad.
worked better if I said it that way. The timing-wise, the music faded right there.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Well, she'll be back next week. I'm sure to talk all about Pokemon, right?
Oh, yeah. You can't keep her away. You kidding me? Pokemon Week? No. She's going to be tearing down the walls. You kidding me?
I may be away, and that may be when I sit out, because I will have absolutely nothing to contribute to that conversation.
You mean you don't want a repeat of our God of War episode where Max and I just talked about God of War for like 30 minutes while you were on Twitter?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it
Why
was.
not?
I was on Twitter for a very long length of time during that episode, but it was a good conversation. Everyone should go check that video out if they haven't seen it. It was a good episode.
Yeah, I definitely go check out that episode of Flip Screen Games podcast. Max was a great number 2 for that conversation on God of War. And if you're playing the game, if you're not playing it, if you've been hearing the buzz and you want to get our takes on it, we did like a nice spoiler-free section and then a spoiler-light section as well. So it was a great conversation. So go check it out if you missed that one. But that's not what we're here to talk about here today. We're here to talk about Nintendo, of course. The Game Awards announced all their nominees just about, a day ago now, I think, as of recording. And there are quite a few Nintendo games on that list. So we're going to be talking all about Nintendo at the Game Awards and a new season of content coming to Splatoon 3 and maybe some more stuff because it's a jam-packed show here on Nintendo Noise this week. So let's just jump right into it. Nintendo at the Game Awards. Thursday, December 8th, 2022, less than a month away. The Game Awards 2022 will be in full swing. And there are, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Nintendo or Nintendo associated games. There's one you might yell at me about that are on the list with some of which with a couple nominees to their name, not necessarily making the same splash as some of the games from Sony this year, but we got some good ones on this list. So we'll go through them real quick here. The first one up is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. That is our most popular Nintendo game with 3 different awards nominations. Game of the Year, Best Score in Music, and Best Role-Playing Game. Bayonetta 3 has won with Best Action Game. Pokemon Legends Arceus has won with Best Role-Playing Game. Live Alive has won with Best Role-Playing Game. Triangle Strategy has won with Best Role-Playing Game. And that was the one that I said is a Nintendo-related game. Now here's the thing. Technically published by Square on PC and in Japan, but internationally on the Switch, published by Nintendo. So it still counts. So Triangle Strategy won Best Role-Playing Game. Kirby and the Forgotten Land won with Best Family. Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope had 2 with Best Family and Best Sim Strategy. Nintendo Switch Sports had 1 with Best Family. Splatoon 3 had 2, our second highest, tied with Mario plus Rabbids, for Best Family and Best Multiplayer. And then Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom wins Most Anticipated Game 2 years in a row.
Oh, you think they're gonna win it again?
It's a non-zero chance, I'll tell you that, Steve.
Yeah, I know. This would be the 3rd year, right? That it's the most anticipated game?
Is it 3
in
years in a
for
row? I
nominations
remember
already.
it won last
It's
year.
3 years in a row.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, but that's wild.
But I mean, it just goes to show how nonsense this category is at that point. Like this category just does not need to exist.
We've
It's
talked about
pointless.
this before. It's the most anticipated game presented by Amazon Prime. Of course, it doesn't need to exist. This is totally a nonsense, just for shits and giggles category.
And in general, I don't know, a lot of categories, I'm just like, what does that even mean?
Like what?
What is this category? Like, what are you basing this off of? Were you in the studio to know all of these things? I don't know. But yeah, award shows are like that. They
Yeah.
always have like nonsense things. And I'm just
Yeah,
like,
I
all
mean,
right,
it's
we
like
know it's a celebration.
That's
of
the
you
whole
all
point,
doing your
right?
thing. Yeah.
I drafted and deleted a tweet today like 2 or 3 times because I was about to get in the mud over this discourse, and I was like, guys, it's an award show. It's a popularity contest. So yeah,
We're there for the trailers.
it's of course it's going to be conversation around the games that everybody played, right? The most
Mhm.
mainstream games are going to be overrepresented. You know, it
Yeah.
just is what it is.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure we'll talk about it more on the Flip Screen Games podcast this week in general. So I'll save my comments on the Game Awards as a whole for
Sure.
that episode. But I will just say that I think, as I've made the argument for our Game of the Year awards that we hand out on the very prestigious podcast Flip Screen Games,
the Flippies
it should take place next year. It should take place after the year has finished. There are games that came out literally on the day that the awards were nominated that are just discounted. That anything from that day onwards will be in next year's awards, and by that point it will have been forgotten about.
Unless it's
like the
Smash Brothers. Smash
thing
Brothers,
all over again, yeah.
came out in December, and it was strong at the Game Awards the next year, but not so great if you're a little indie title.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Just
Real
people
shame.
got to stop.
But yeah.
People got to stop releasing games in December, I guess. You know, this is the award dead zone.
I don't think that's the answer. The answer is like move it to January and do it as like a look forward into video games for the whole year. But yeah, we'll get into the weeds on that.
We'll argue all about that on the other show.
Uh-huh.
So with the Nintendo stuff, I think for me there were a couple surprises here. Most of it felt predictable. I thought it was interesting that Nintendo almost single-handedly had the best role-playing game category, like on lock.
Yeah.
Like almost every game is a Nintendo game.
And the family one.
That's
Like
every
the family
year, though.
one is one game.
Every year, family game is all Nintendo games, and then either one indie or like a Lego game, and like that's it.
They didn't win family game last year, though, did they? Wasn't that
I think it
the
was
one that won game
Takes Two.
Game of the Year?
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, It Takes Two.
which was nonsense because that's not a family game. It's a game about families, but I wouldn't let a kid play that. But anyway, for this one, Elden Ring is literally the only non-Nintendo game on the list, which is like pretty nuts.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, I
And
mean,
it-
Triangle Strategy is not really a Nintendo game. I would say that's not, but I know that you've made the argument that it is.
It's a technicality, but it is a console exclusive that is in part published by Nintendo. You got to give it to them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. If they win any of them, it's great. I don't think they're gonna get the best RPG.
No,
if I'm
Elden
honest.
Ring's gonna
think-
fucking clean this one up. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Especially
and
'cause I
also
don't-
think they're gonna get Game of the Year.
And my thing is, I don't know that Elden Ring can win Game of the Year. I think it's contentious at this point. I think it probably still will, but if it doesn't win Game of the Year, you bet your ass it's gonna win Best RPG, right? Like,
No, it's gonna lose that too. Xenoblade's got it. It's gotta be Xenoblade.
Can you imagine if that happens? Like, what a turnout for the books it'll be. Everyone's arguing that it's going to be between Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok, and then
You split the
Xenoblade
vote.
Chronicles 3 comes up from behind. Yeah.
They're both in the same category. Just saying.
yeah,
They're both up for Game of the Year. They're both up for RPG. So it could happen.
I could
Yeah.
see if Elden Ring wins Game of the Year, maybe they give it to Xenoblade as a consolation prize. That's a thing that happens sometimes, you know. Like, and I say they. It's a voting body. I know that the Game Awards
makes no
doesn't
sense.
give out
It's like-
games, but
It's like the indie game Stray obviously is nominated for Game of the Year. It's like, okay, so that's gonna win the indie category, right? Like,
I don't think it
otherwise,
always
one of
plays
those-
out that way.
I also don't know if that's the case this year because you've got Vampire Survivors in the indie category, and I really think that's the one that should have been in Game of the Year category is the indie title.
I think
to be
every
honest.
other game in the indie category is better than Stray.
Yeah, that's my view on it as well. Like, Stray was just not great. It was okay. It
I
didn't
liked
really
it
do
fine.
anything
I liked it fine.
amazing.
Game of the Year.
But yeah,
it's
like
not.
you got Cult of the Lamb in there as well, and Tunic in there. Like
Yeah.
those are strong titles as well. Sifu was a huge thing.
And I'll say this: I know you made the case. You think Vampire Survivor should be in that last spot. I'm over here like I kind of feel like Kirby got snubbed. I think Kirby in the Forgotten Land is a much better game than Stray.
You think Kirby's better than like Arceus as well, Pokemon Arceus, because that's there in Best RPG, but was not in the contention for Game of the Year.
I think if you're just like trying to look at it like you know, obviously you can't judge art objectively, right? That doesn't exist. Everyone, you can't account for taste, but like if I'm trying to remove my personal bias and just look at these as two games head to head, I would say Kirby is a better, quote unquote, better game. I think it's like a better executed.
They both
game.
do the claymated enemies in the distance. I like that.
I just think that game was so stylish. Like, I think that was one of the more
Yeah.
memorable
me
games of the
too.
year. It had a great soundtrack. It was really fun. Like, I think it
I
was
played it while in Philly. That was
That's
a
true.
great part about it.
best weekend of the year. You know, I don't know. I feel like that game had juice in a way that Stray just didn't for me. And I don't know. Like, I know that there's a lot of people that really love Stray, and there's a lot of people that I think connected with it in a way
Is
that.
there like genuinely? I don't know anyone that's still talking about that game. I
Yeah,
just
but nobody's
don't.
talking about Kirby either, right? That doesn't mean it wasn't good.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's probably one of the reasons why I don't think it can be up there for Game of the Year. Whereas people still are talking about how amazing Elden Ring was, how amazing. I think there's people like Wakahula in our Discord talking about how amazing Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is. I know Chuy was really enjoying it as well. I don't think there are people saying how amazing of an experience Stray was.
I
And
think there
that's
are.
probably why.
I think it's a minority
They all
opinion,
just-
but
And they all just speak in meows, so you can't understand them anyways.
I mean,
Yeah.
I literally saw
Yeah.
somebody in my sphere today who was tweeting that like, oh, like I was really moved by the story of Stray, and people couldn't get past it because they don't like cats, and it's like that's not the problem. I'm an insane
I
cat
adore
person.
cats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a person I like. You know, I'm not trying to dunk on their opinion. But it's just like, for me, even as a cat guy, like I thought that game was pretty mid, and like I think Kirby is well above average. You know, like
I think it's because your cats didn't like it as much as other cats.
they weren't
did.
as engaged as some of the other cats.
Had they just like rubbed up against your TV that whole time, you would have different thoughts about it.
Maybe. I still don't think I would like the end of that game. Yeah, there's just a lot about it. If people want to know, they can go listen to our episode all about Stray over on the Flip Screen Games podcast. But I think I would agree with you. Of the games they've got, I'm surprised that Kirby, or I think probably Bayonetta would have been the other one that I would have said might have been up there, because it was so anticipated.
That's what
people seem to think it's like, oh, it's very, very ambitious for a
Yeah.
Switch game.
The only reason I'm kind of not surprised that one didn't hit is just because it was like marred with controversy, you know, and like I wouldn't be surprised if there are people that are like not sure how to feel about it, and you know, or like didn't play it because of that, and you know, I don't know. Not saying that that's a good reason, right? But like whenever I look at these lists, I try to think about like who the voting body is and like what are the games that they played this year, and like why are certain games popping off and others don't, you know, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see how Nintendo fares, because they like lined up a decent number of nominations, but I don't see them coming home with a lot of wins. You know, I feel like
No, I think they're going to win the family category, obviously, and I think they'll win the RPG category. I
think they'll beat Elden Ring?
Kirby's... Oh shit! No, I forgot that was
Right,
there. No,
that's
they're
the
not going to
thing.
beat Elden Ring. I think they're only going to get the family category, and I think it's probably going to be Kirby of the ones that are listed that I would go for. Splatoon's great, but it's more of the same, right? We've already had Splatoon. This is just the next step. I don't think it really adds much more that warrants another game award.
I guess
but-
it could maybe win multiplayer, because like all the games on the list, I don't know. It's like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is like, that's kind of like old hat, right? So it's like, does that have the juice? Multiverses.
Yeah, but I think Multiverses is going to clench that. It's
Yeah,
such a
but
big
again, like
thing.
it had its moment a while ago, and like there's still a community there playing it. But like, how, you know, I don't know. Like Splatoon is more recent, and like Overwatch 2 is more recent. You know, so I don't know. It's
Yeah, I know, but Overwatch 2 was not great. Launch
fizzled.
either, was it?
yeah, it fizzled.
Yeah.
I liked Girlfriend Review's video on Overwatch 2, where they actually called it Overwatch TOO. Like, yeah,
As
this
well.
is also Overwatch.
It's all just also Overwatch. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because like I think you're right. Like Family's a lock. I think there's a couple others where they could surprise us, but I don't know.
They
man.
might surprise with score, honestly. The music is usually well respected from Xenoblade, but
It got nominated for best score.
Yeah. So that could be one there.
Yeah, because like there's not the other ones aren't as like I don't know, like God of War has a great soundtrack, but like I don't know that that's the thing people think about. You know, I've not heard people talk about Plague Tale's music. I'm not really sure about Metal Hellsinger, but like Elden Ring again is one that I don't remember it being really defined by its soundtrack. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
So maybe
No,
because like
I do remember it being
Xenoblade's
pretty
music
good,
slaps. You know, like that was a thing people talked about when Xenoblade came out was how good the music is.
I'm surprised that Mario Rabbids isn't on that list because I remember Chewy talking about the music in that game, and like it's three of the best video game composers of all time that have come together to make that soundtrack, and it's just like snubbed on the list. Very, very strange choices in places, but I do think Mario Rabbids could take best sim or strategy game. I've not heard anyone talking about the June game anymore. Like, you know, we spoke about it when it was announced, and we thought it was something it wasn't. And then maybe Total War. I could see maybe that one clenching it, but I think Mario Rabbids is probably.
I think Mario Rabbids
best
is the
sim
most
game.
mainstream
It's good.
choice, and it's also a good
But it's
game.
also like they upped the combat in that one. At some point, I'd like written a guide about changing the difficulty level, and I like accidentally left it on the hardest difficulty for some
Nice.
things, and I was just like, "Why is this all of a sudden really difficult and nobody's dying?" I beat like a couple stages like that, and I was just like, dang, this is a tough strategy game. So I think like for people who really like strategy, like the challenge is there with that game. So
For sure.
yeah, it's a surprising one, but nobody expects Mario Rabbids. But yeah, solid strategy game. The final boss, wild.
So
Lots of
yeah.
stuff
I
going
think you're probably right about that, Steve. So I think overall, there's a few that they could surprise us in, but I think the only ones that feel like a lock are family and most anticipated game.
I don't know about most anticipated
on.
Resident
There's some
Evil
big
4.
ones on that one. Yeah. Well, Resident
The
Evil 4 is a
remake of
Nintendo
Resident
game.
Evil 4. People are so excited.
I don't know. Like you're right, but it's like it's Zelda. Like, and it's not only Zelda; it's a sequel to like one of the most acclaimed games ever made.
Yeah, one of the best games of all time.
And the longer they delay it, the more it feels like it's going to be the game that launches the new console, which I think also adds juice to it. Of like,
it better be the game
so
that launches
hungry,
the new console. I'm so ready for some new hardware at this point. Man.
This list is like heavy hitters here. Like none of these are small franchises or in any way.
And
so.
I think that's the thing that surprises me the most, right? Is like just I guess to put a pin in this is like looking back on this list, I was kind of like, man, like Nintendo actually had a lot of like big games out this year, and I feel like almost none of them made a splash, you know? And like obviously like something like Bayonetta, right, like has a really, really diehard fan base, and it is very popular, but it's not necessarily like, you know, Mario, Pokemon popular, whatever. That's fine.
It's not moving the systems.
But like, I feel like Pokemon and Xenoblade are really the only games on this list that felt like they really had a moment where everybody was talking about them. The rest of these games really feel like they came and went. And like, I think some of that might just be like, you know, bad timing, right? Like Mario Rabbids came out at like a very competitive time. And it's not the most popular style of game, even if it is a Mario game. But like,
rest in peace.
I'm kind of surprised Bayonetta didn't again, marred in controversy, but I'm kind of surprised it didn't have more of a moment. I'm kind of surprised Splatoon 3 didn't have more of a moment, but I guess to Steve's point, more of the same. But I honestly think the big thing, and this was the thing for me when I was really thinking about like, why didn't I play some of these games, or why didn't I finish the games that I started and liked? And I genuinely think it's because I'm tired of playing on my Switch. It's because like it's just not as good an experience as playing on my Steam Deck or my PlayStation or my Xbox right now. And like,
yeah, my
sucks.
last pair of Joy-Cons have drifted, and I don't know if I have got it in me to try and repair them again. I'm playing 100% docked at the moment. I can't with those Joy-Cons. It's ridiculous.
Like, that was the thing with me with Xenoblade, was I wanted to chip away at Xenoblade while I wasn't on the TV, but I hated the way it looked in handheld mode. You know, like,
and
does it
that's
look
a huge
bad?
improvement from the previous Xenoblades.
I know.
Let me tell you.
But it was bad still. It was 540. Like, it was rough.
You need to just like borrow a copy of Xenoblade 2
Just to see.
and see how that. Oh my gosh, it is terrible. Like Xenoblade 3 will look like amazing to you after.
And it's like, I don't know. I really loved that game. Like, I was having a lot of fun with it, and I thought it was going to be in my short list for Game of the Year, but, like, I just lost steam on it. And I think a big part of it was, like, these load times. Like, even docked, it doesn't look great, and it doesn't run great. And, you know, like, it runs good. It runs fine. It's not a bad game. It's just, like, it's limited by its hardware. And that's frustrating because it's an awesome, beautiful game. And like, and
that seemed to be the complaint with Bayonetta as well. I saw a lot of people just saying this was too ambitious for the hardware that they were targeting.
I would say that's like
reined
this
it in
whole
a little
year.
bit.
I think that's like this whole year for Nintendo, honestly. Like Splatoon 3 bugs out, frame drops all over the place, so much more than Splatoon 2, and it's definitely just like all of these art assets that aren't getting loaded as well as they did with the other ones, and I think we're just seeing that.
Which is really weird because that game like has FSR in which is AMD's like scaling scaling engine, similar to like Nvidia's DLSS, and it has the copyright for that in their licenses, but they have not implemented it. So it feels like they knew that this was an issue, and they just whether FSR just didn't work with the title or something, I don't know. Like it feels like they could have addressed it in
They're
some
saving
way.
it for the Switch 2 version.
Well, if they're saving it, they're not going to use FSR on the next version. That will be the DLSS implementation. At least I hope so.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I feel like we've been like saying this for a while now, where we're like, man, the Switch is starting to show its age. It's starting
It's
to
just
hold...
more and more evidence, though.
Yeah, and it's like
definitely there.
I feel like now it's at a point where it's actually holding quality games back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's making.
I mean, we're going into what, 6 years next year?
Yeah,
6 years since I think.
No. Now it's 6 years, right? It came out in 2016.
2017.
17.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dude, time is
March 2017.
Time is messing with
so
me.
It'll be
Half a
6
decade,
years
though,
in
it's still a
March.
while.
So it's like it's ready. It's ready for something. Because we'd had mid-gen refreshes on the other consoles,
Correct.
and we have not had that with the Switch, unless you count the OLED model, which I don't, because that's
Kind
just
of the new
screen
processor
improvement.
at some point too.
There was the Mariko
battery life,
version,
right?
which was just changing down to the nanometer process. So it just but they used all of that headroom for battery life. So you never got any like CPU improvements. It wasn't like you had the 3DS and the new 3DS, where the new 3DS was more powerful, and you can feel it in the load times, and you could play specific titles that were only for that console. The Switch hasn't had anything like that, and I think it's ready. And I don't think we're going to see the Switch go away. I think they're going to continue to sell the OLED model, and I think the bottom end model will probably disappear, but they'll replace it with something new. I think
gotta
we're ready
say,
for that.
I don't know if I agree with that anymore. Because, like, I always thought that was, like, a foregone conclusion, but looking at how poorly this thing is able to keep up with the games that they're trying to put out, it's just, like, I don't think you can do that. Like, I don't see how you put out, Tears of the Kingdom on this thing and have it run.
I bet they'll put
The
it out.
same way all of the
ran on Wii U.
PS5 games and Xbox Series X games are still coming out on their other
Exactly,
consoles.
that's 2 years in, and like they've got to target the original Xbox One, which has only ever output games at a maximum of 900p. So like there's no way they're gonna drop it. I mean, they kept the 2DS
that's not actually
around
true, though.
for like. They kept the 2DS around for a year.
Yeah, but
like,
it's not the same
if they're doing
thing.
that, I don't think they're going to drop the Switch, especially considering how many components are they going to have, how many versions of the console have they got already lined up and built that they need to shift. I don't think they get rid of it overnight.
So, couple points there. For starters, the PlayStation 4 thing, those are games that started in development as PlayStation 4 titles, and then the highest optimized version runs on PS5. I don't think that's quite the same thing, because, like, yeah, right, like, Horizon, God of War are going to run a million times better on your PS5 than your PS4, but there's a version that's
But
built
those
with those
titles, though,
limitations in mind.
were announced, though, as exclusive to PS5. The same as Gran Turismo, which
Yeah, but that was a marketing play, though. We know that.
Gran
right?
Turismo
Like,
7 was meant to be a PS5 only title. And I think they were targeting the PS5 from the beginning. They reined that back in to release on
Sure.
PS4 as well. So I actually think the Tears of the Kingdom probably started as a Nintendo Switch title, like for the current gen hardware, in the same way that Breath of the Wild started as a Wii U game, and we're probably going to see that come up to the next console as well, in the same way that Breath of the Wild showed up on the Wii U and then also launched the Switch.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. So then the other thing is with the Xbox One releases, right? Like, that's also kind of a different thing, because isn't that done via technology? Like, it's not just like there's not a SKU for one, is there?
What do you mean?
Because like with here, let me see.
You can release a Series X only version of a game, like
Right.
the Flight Simulator is only available on this generation. But if they target the last generation, they have to target the original Xbox One and
Yes.
the One X.
Right, of course.
They're not allowed to target either or.
Right.
In the same way that you can target the PS original, if you're doing a PS4 game, it has to be PS4 and Pro. You can't just target the Pro.
So then the other thing was you brought up the 3DS. I think that is also different, right? Because the idea of maintaining support for a console that has a built-in audience and like making exclusive software for that device is not the same as making a cross-generational device that you have to target both of those SKUs, right? Like, not to say that you're wrong, but I don't think that's a one-to-one comparison. The idea of like, we're going to support the 3DS for a year or two while we see how the Switch does and it builds up its audience and, you know, whatever, we protect ourselves from putting all our eggs in one basket because obviously the Wii U had been a failure, right? Like, that felt like a calculated choice to be like, we're going to support this while we need it and then wind it down when it's no longer relevant, right? Whereas like, I think with the idea of there being like, okay, like there's a Switch 2, right? But your Switch 1 still works. Well, I mean, the last set of the every big release that came out this year, right? With, I guess, maybe the exception of Pokemon Legends Arceus, had pretty significant trouble. Like the bigger releases, right? Like we just talked about Xenoblade 3. We talked about Bayonetta. Like how
we've
long...
also had some incredible ports. Like you look at the port of Nier Automata. You look at the new port. They've reported Ark, which I can't believe that they've even bothered to do that, but they have. It looks like a phenomenal port. Like it feels like we're in that last year, that last couple of years where we're eking out the most we can get. It's like drawing blood from a stone.
But that's the thing I don't think they can do that for much longer. You know, like...
No, I agree with you, but I feel like if you make it so this game runs like a potato, but it still runs, I think that's what they're probably going to do. And I also think what Chuy said holds true, that they've probably got, and not just them, but third-party developers as well, have a bunch of Switch games already in development that run fine on the Switch, that will run better on the new Switch, and they'll just release those. And so you keep both of them around for 2 years, because I think PlayStation only cut off PS4 production last year.
Yeah,
which
that's
was
true.
1 year, which was 1 year
so
into
you're talking
the
about
PS5's
kind of
life cycle.
A gradual wind down.
Yes,
as
winding
the
it down and slowly phasing it out. But I don't think it's going to go, right, Switch 2 replaces the Switch. You can no longer buy the Switch. I think it'll be the Switch 2 is the new high-end model.
I agree with that.
The original Switch is dead. The Switch Lite stays around for a while. And I think when the Switch Lite 2 gets introduced, that's when we phase out the old Switches entirely.
I don't know that we'll see one-to-one parity with software releases, though. That's where I think it's going to be an interesting thing, right? Because it's like you made the point of like with Breath of the Wild, right? Like being that kind of cross-gen release. That was the only one, right? Because that game was already in active development. I think whatever games have been currently developed with the Switch in mind, totally am with you that they'll get a proper Switch release.
But I don't agree with that, because I think the Switch is just going to be called the Switch, and I think they're going to continue onwards. And I don't think it's going to be called a Switch 2 and it's going to be a sequel. I think it's just going to be the Nintendo Switch.
I mean, I'm saying 2 for the sake of just naming it something. It has to be a different product with a different name and a different SKU, because otherwise you create market confusion, and they don't want to do that, right? Like, if they're emulating the phone model, you don't just have the iPhone. You have the iPhone, and then the iPhone 2, and then the iPhone 5, and then the iPhone 5S, and whatever, right? Like, it's going to have a model number so that, grandma, your parents that don't play video games can go to the store and be like, oh, I want to get the Switch, and then they get the one, and it's like, oh, this is the shit one that can't run Breath of the Wild 2. Like,
I'm really torn about this, mostly because I think you both make really good points on both ends, and I look at it as like we just saw a bunch of numbers come out for like the latest Switch sales. I think it's 5th best-selling console at this point. It's 100% going to be like it's probably 4th by now, but it's definitely going to be like 3rd by the end of March or something, just based on sales alone. And I just don't see Nintendo being as ready to ditch that software market. Like the Switch has such an incredible retention rate with people, like they're buying lots of games on there. A lot of people have been enjoying games there. So just that fact alone, I'm like, I don't see them leaving that as soon as the new console is. Maybe it is just like a revision. It's like Switch Pro or whatever, just the higher thing.
I could see that. I could see Switch
see
Pro, Switch S, something like that. I don't see it replacing and being like a new number. And I agree with you 100% that they do not want to leave that market behind. It's the same reason Sony's still pumping out PS4 games.
Yeah, they've said as much,
not
right?
Want to leave. Yeah, they don't want to leave 100 million customers behind. That's a lot of potential people, because you're just starting from scratch otherwise. And maybe if you sell 10 million within the first couple of months, that's still only 10 million you can sell your game to, versus 130 million.
Yeah, but you have to break it off at some point,
Switch
though,
sales.
right? Like, it's like
at some point, when you've built up a big enough player base, like that's what Sony's doing, right? They're building up the big enough player base. We're up to like 25 million PlayStation 5 sales, and when they probably hit like 50 million, they'll be like, right, that's enough now. We don't need to target anymore. We're gonna continue on now with just PS5 only games.
Just to give you the context, they are quickly closing in on the PS4 for 4th place. According to the current Wikipedia numbers, we have 114 million, roughly, Nintendo Switches closing in on PlayStation 4's 117 million.
And my guess is like, I think this number came in maybe end of October, maybe September. I forget when that quarterly report comes out, but it's likely ahead of that at this point.
I would say by the end of the year, they'll probably surpass both the PlayStation 4 and the Game Boy. And then that would put them in 3rd place behind the DS and the PlayStation 2 at 154
they're
and 155.
for sure past that, because it's holiday season now, and they've got that Mario Kart bundle out. Everybody's going to be on it.
Yeah, they're selling like 3 to 4 million a quarter easily. So that's
they trot that bundle out every single year,
and it sells every single year.
Ridiculous.
Yeah,
well, and I don't know, and like that's the thing, right? Is like, I think you can still sell the hardware and promote it and try to get people interested and get them on board even without a ton of new releases. Like, that was something they did with the 3DS. It was like, oh, there's like one game coming out every quarter now, and then it's 2 games a year, and now there's one game, and now it's dead.
2016 was a sad year, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But look at what they did with Metroid, right? They launched Metroid with the OLED Switch. It was the perfect game to launch that console with, because it was so dark and like vivid, and it popped out of the screen. I could totally see them doing the same thing with Zelda. You want this to be the best experience, where you can play it on your Switch, and it'll be a similar experience to how you had Breath of the Wild. You might see some slowdown, it's 30 frames per second, or you can have like super resolution. It uses DLSS, it uses X, Y, and Z that we've put in the new Switch. This is how you really want to play it and buy a new console, and here's a bundle.
And I'm inclined to agree with you, but I also think that there's an argument to be made, right? That, like, again, to take it back to what we just talked about, 2 of Nintendo's big releases this year, I think were pretty hampered by its technology. Like, do you really want to put out what could be what is the sequel to the most popular game in one of your most popular franchises, one of your most critically acclaimed games of all time, and then you put out a version that's on your now 7-year-old console that runs like shit, And that's the way that the vast majority of people are going to experience it.
Yeah,
and
that's how they're gonna. That's what
that
they're
game's
gonna do.
garbage.
There is absolutely no way that game goes next gen only. Not a chance. That game is coming to the Switch. I think it's even been announced.
They still
that
made
it's
it for
coming to the
Wii U, like in the end,
Yeah.
even though the Wii U was, hot garbage. But
I don't think that's as much of a risk though, because there wasn't that many people that owned a Wii U.
that's true. 13 million, right?
Is like-
it's not a big number.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so a couple million people bought the old version on the shitty console that they already owned, whatever. Like, if they felt burnt, they felt burnt. If you have, again, let's bring that up, 114 million users, and this is the game, this is the what? The number 2 game, I think, in terms of attach rate, is Breath of the Wild. So you tell me every one of those people buys a sequel that runs like hot garbage and that doesn't hurt the IP or the name Switch?
I don't think it's gonna run like garbage though. I think it's probably gonna
it'll
run
still
a comparable
You think?
way.
I mean,
that
the
Breath of
original
Wild
didn't run
runs.
that well.
The original ran just fine. It was 30 frames per second. You had some slowdown in the forest, but other than that, I kind
in
of
the
felt
Great
like it was.
Which
It
they
was
tried to
fine,
patch.
They made it a little better, but I mean, I'm
it
just
got
saying
better.
that was the first game on the console, right? And it already
Yes, that's
was
a
limited.
good point, right? But that's the first game on the console, but it was also a cross-gen title.
Yeah.
So I feel like this one we're right at the end of the generation. We're eking out the most. Look what we can do. And like, granted, Nintendo knows better than anyone that this hardware is running along in the tooth. We saw that with the release of Bowser's Fury. It was the first title they did that didn't have frame rate parity on handheld and docked. The handheld ran at, I think, 60 FPS, and the docked mode ran at 30 because they favored resolution than frame rate for the docked mode. So it tried to hit 1080p rather than 720. And it just like that was really the beginning of the end for this console for me. It was like, if Nintendo's having to make compromises and they can't have the same experience between docked and handheld like they've been able to do from the beginning, then I think they're finding that they can't meet the technology is not meeting their artistic requirements, and at some point it's going to have to give, and I think it's going to be with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
I think you're probably right. Well, we'll know sooner or later. So we've got some more to talk about, but before we get to that, let me remind you that this week's episode of Nintendo Noise is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of November. They are, of course, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Mary Berry, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. Y'all are the realest of the real, and we appreciate your support of this and all of our sister programs. If you want to go and become a Patreon supporter, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find links to our Patreon, our YouTube channel, our Twitch channel, wherever we're making content, wherever we're making stuff where you can come and get involved or support us. We'll have links over there on flipscreen.games. Come join the Discord, get our email address right into the show. However you choose to get involved, we appreciate you tuning into this week's show. While we're doing this housekeeping, I am going to give you 2 reminders. We are just about 2 weeks away from episode 1 of our Persona 5 Royal Game Club. So this is your reminder to go pick it up on Nintendo Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, PC, wherever you're going to play it. Go pick up the game, play along, get up to the end of the first palace, the end of Kamoshida's palace. There is a moment where you will name your team, and that's going to be the point where we stop. So now's I'm going to remind you again next week, but here you go. Go pick it up. Catch up, only a couple hours to get on board. So even if you just grabbed it this weekend, you could get to where you need to get. So
it's more. I mean, maybe I just play these two.
Oh no, it's
thoroughly.
definitely more. I'm 3 hours in and I'm not there yet. Chewy.
What I
like
say?
7 hours.
I said a couple hours, right? That's 2.
Yeah,
It's a few. It's a few. It's
I'm like
more than
7
3.
hours in and I'm not there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing it for the second time, so I know what I'm doing as well. So like that might be helping me speed up a little bit.
I'm also clicking fast forward when Morgana's like, "Here's how you do this. Here's what this means," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know all of this, Morgana."
Yeah, I remember.
Forward. I don't care.
Oh, I don't.
Chewy's like,
So,
I don't. What?
But I also kind of do. It's just like a different coat of paint for me. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. So the point being, we'd love for you to come and get involved. Go play the game, write in with your thoughts, all that good stuff. We'll be making a new Discord channel for it and everything. So I hope you'll come join us on this journey. And it is going to be a once-a-month deal. So even if you don't make it in time for the first episode, if you decide you want to jump on the bandwagon, you can catch up and check it out. So come be involved. We'd love to have you. And then another reminder for you to go check out our God of War Ragnarok spoiler-free impressions with Max Wright over on the Flip Screen Games podcast. Great episode. Really proud of it. Go check it out. All right, so let's jump into our talking point for the week. There is a new season of Splatoon 3 content about to drop, hot off the heels of the Pokemon Splatfest. And I don't know, I'm kind of wondering, like, where are you guys at with Splatoon 3? Because
I just don't care.
You two are like the big Splatoon boys, and like I got to be honest with you, I regret buying it. And this is because like
keep playing.
I've put almost no time into it because nobody's playing, and it feels like everybody wanted to play for like a week, and now nobody's touching it, and nobody's ever online when I try to jump in. And I gotta say, like,
I'm really sorry. I've given up with it. I tried. I just was like, I've had enough of Splatoon. Like, I was done. And like the communication issues I had, so many issues around that first weekend and that first week of the game. I was just like, it was frustrating. All I wanted to do was get on, play Splatoon, try the new Salmon Run stuff, try the new Splatoon 3 stuff. Like, I didn't even take part in this weekend's Splatfest.
Me neither.
I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah, I know, and it's sad, right? And I know people, if they want to go and get their Splatfest stuff, they've only got until the end of the season. So if they want to pick up their shells, they've got till December 1st. But I don't know. I wish I was into it as much. The seasonal stuff I thought was going to hit for me, but I just don't really care all that much about filling in my locker. I wish I did. I don't. I wish it was like more seasonal clothing and seasonal weapons and seasonal items and things that like people are actually going to see, so they know that I was one of the OGs who was here like launch day, and I've got this exclusive season stuff that you'll never be able to get because it was only in season 1, and now the new season's out, but it doesn't feel like that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, for me, with 180 hours or more on Splatoon 3 as of right now, I play it basically on the daily, but that's just because Splatoon is my just, I want to shoot people up and try to be good at something today and let out some aggression, right? But no, I think I'm excited for it personally because I feel like the updates to this game are just too slow. I think every 3 months just feels like it's dragging its feet, just trying to give us something new to do and something new to enjoy and collect and stuff. And I feel like I'm at the point where I've completed, I think, 2 catalogs to completion. And the first one's the only one worth doing, I'll tell you that, because the second one, you get a prize every 10 catalog levels. The prize is a food ticket half the time. And I'm just like, wow, thanks. This was not worth any effort whatsoever. Sure. I was like, just give me the money, the 10,000 money, because I'm always broke in this game still. So the catalog's not as exciting after you finish the first one. The first one's usually pretty fun, but yeah, the new stuff, it just feels like it's coming out too slowly. It feels like I liked that they gave us like a schedule at least before with this, and kind of avoided what they've run into in the past with other games where it's like the future updates planned. Who knows when Switch Sports will get this golf update?
Yeah, it's cool that there's like a roadmap that it's like this season ends on December 1st, and these are the things that are coming. Like, that's good. I definitely agree with you, but
it's just like every 3 months is not enough. I think it has to be a monthly thing,
dude. And like, this comes back to the whole conversation we had at launch, where I'm just like, this feels like an archaic way to make this game. Like, this game should be free to play, and they should have a dedicated team to making sure that there's constantly new content. Because I feel like it got haloed, right? Where like Halo came out and everyone's like, oh, Halo's amazing, Halo's back, I fucking love Halo. And they're like, all right, here's our first season pass. And then they're like, we have nothing after that. Everything else is months away. And by the time anything comes out,
all it takes is
everyone moved on.
All it takes is one bad launch, though, because Battlefield had a bad launch. Everyone went back to Halo. Modern Warfare 2's had a bad launch. It feels like everyone's going back to Halo. There's like new stuff coming to that game. Like people do go back to these titles.
It's not to say that Splatoon 3 is never going to have other moments. Like I know it has a community that's out there playing it and everything. Whatever.
The moments aren't as big as they were, though, and I feel like it's just because of the breadth of choice we've got now. Like the Splatfest used to feel like a moment. It wasn't until Chuy reminded me on last week's episode, like, oh hey, which team are you going with? And I was just like, to be honest, I completely forgot that there was a Splatfest that was on this weekend because I just had not been keeping on top of it like I was before.
And it's so funny because like Chuy brought it up, and I was like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna get back into it. Let me play this week. I'll do the water thing, but I'm like. Man, like,
dude, water dominated.
Good.
They literally they won everything.
It's the best type.
And I was just like,
but you know, it's like,
did they win in Europe? I need to have a look.
I don't know if
I have a finite amount of time to play games, right? And it's like the call to me right now is like, oh, if I have time, I want to be playing God of War. I want to be playing, or like honestly, like. The other multiplayer games that I'm playing that took precedence over this, where it's like, like I was playing Multiversus a ton this year. I've kind of fallen off of that a little bit. I'd rather get back into that than get back into Splatoon. And like right now I'm playing Marvel Snap as like a kind of side multiplayer game. And like I've already done 3 seasons of that in the time that Splatoon's had 1 season. And the stuff that I'm rewarded with in that season pass is like, it's better. Yeah, like it's a better season pass system. There's a good daily system that I'm constantly engaged with. There's, the rewards, even the cosmetic rewards are things that do impact the game for me in a meaningful way. Like it's like I feel like there's not enough carrot with Splatoon 3 where it's like the only reason to get deeply invested in Splatoon 3 and play it all the time is if you're just addicted to the gameplay, right? And like I like the gameplay of Splatoon a lot, but I'm not good at it. And like I don't feel encouraged to invest the time to get better because like it's like to what end, right? Whereas like with Multiverses, I was grinding out because I'm like, oh, I want to rank up, I want to get this, I want to unlock this thing, I want to get this daily done, like whatever, right? Like it gave me reasons to want to get good, and I feel like Splatoon hasn't really encouraged me to do that.
I've seen you play.
There are reasons.
It's because you think like a human and not like a squid.
You're right. You're right, Chuy, and I know you're right. I know.
You gotta swim more.
I know. I'm too often a kid and not often enough a squid.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you should basically always be in the ground unless you're shooting someone or the ground.
I do, and I die. I'm always dying. It's like I feel like it's when I play Call of Duty, and like, cause like the most I've ever played Call of Duty is like when my cousin's, I guess he's my nephew. It's my cousin's son, which I found out is technically a nephew, which is weird, but whatever.
That's correct. Yeah.
Whenever he was a big COD kid. So he would get the new one and it'd be like on Christmas, he'd be like, oh, play the new Call of Duty with me. And I'd be like, all right, let's do it. And it's like he's running out and getting kills, and as soon as I'm out of the foxhole, I'm dead. Out, dead. And it's like that's my experience with Splatoon.
Are you like Jim from The Office playing Call of Duty? Do you like blow yourself up with grenades and shoot the wall?
Close enough. I mean, no, but like it's just like I don't. For some reason, Splatoon it's the same thing for me with Call of Duty, where it's like I just don't have the map awareness that I need to be good.
Yeah.
And I don't get what it is that I don't get. So it's, you know what I mean? It's like, how do you get better when you don't know what you don't know?
That's just part of life, right? When you were learning guitar or drums or whatever, I'm sure you went great immediately.
I had a teacher, though.
Well, maybe you need to hire Chuy to teach you how to play Splatoon.
I need Chuy to get in those duos with me.
Take you through boot camp.
Like, I know there's people that teach how to play Smash. AJ was trying to teach me how to play, but it was like I was a disaster. Like, I was a lost cause because I just didn't care. I don't really want to play that game. I think we even traded that in. I just don't care about it. Did you guys
see, this is a total pivot, but the teaching about Smash thing reminded me. Did you see that clip that Sierra posted the other day? She was like, it was from a stream where she was playing Smash, and she was talking to her chat, and she was not paying attention to the match, and is just fucking bodying the guy she's playing against. And then the match is over. And she goes, "Oh shit, the match is over. Who won?" And she's like, "Oh, I won. What?" Like, just perfect flow state.
Great.
Not even looking, reading the chat, just beating ass. It was hilarious.
That's so good. That's so
Amazing. Love it.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
I going back to Splatoon though, I do think there are reasons to jump back into this. We've got a couple of new maps. Brine Water Springs and Flounder Heights is coming back from the first Splatoon game. Even if the catalog stuff is useless, but it looks like there are new gear.
Big Run also seems fun.
Catalog.
Like that, I'm
Big
interested
Run
in that.
You guys need to, if we get back on, let's definitely play Salmon Run. I've been more so than Splatoon 2, I've gotten really into Salmon Run in this one, and I think it's because they did a lot to make it obnoxiously difficult. And I love that. I love that about it. So I've been learning some tricks from my friend, and I'm like,
I mean, I'm down.
Salmon Run's got some sweet strategies to it. But
Yeah,
the Big Run mode looks
I'm
cool.
up for trying that.
I do that.
Yeah, the big run in Wahoo World looks really cool. It's nice to see that map, but like on a larger scale and like being overrun by the salmonids. It's really cool. Like, there is some good stuff in here. I don't know why it's called chill season. I guess because it's winter. That's I guess that's
it's the
theme,
winter
'cause
season.
The clothing seems to be like coats and things.
Yeah, it's like hats and scarves and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. You're right though, P. And Chuy, like the pace of the updates, it needs to be monthly. I think there needs to be something at least every month that we get. Like, I don't think we need a new stage every month, but I do feel like if the catalogs came out in more drips and drabs, so it was like, oh, I'll come back in and maybe even every week there's something fresh in the shop.
I'm glad you
rather than it being like a monthly thing.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Something that should be done, because at the moment it's like you get the whole catalog and it's randomized what's in the store. Why not do it as like a weekly store and you're just getting something new from the catalog every week that comes in, so you kind of see all of the new items and you've got to pick and choose what you want.
So I brought up Marvel Snap, and the thing I really like about this game is every day, so actually every I think 4 hours, your daily missions refresh and you get 2 new ones. So you can bank up to 6, right? So like if you don't play for a couple hours, they'll just stack up. And when you like, I'm coming back in and I have 6 full because I didn't play all day today, right? But they're all there for me. And then for like the season pass, they have it broken up into chapters. So like chapter 1, all the missions dropped like the first week. Now we're in chapter 2. 3 of them have already dropped. There's 4 more. There's a new one that drops in 3 hours. There's a new one that drops tomorrow. There's another one that drops in 2 days and another one that drops in 3 days. And then chapter 6 starts in 6 days and chapter 4 starts in a week and 6 days. So about 2 days.
Yeah, I mean that's like the Fortnite formula with the battle pass and with you doing your daily challenges and the store rotates. All of that stuff, everything that constructs a good free-to-play game that's not, I guess, too intrusive.
Yeah, and that's the thing, all those are
is
things like the battle pass I did have to buy into, right? But if I wasn't doing that, like it's like, all right, well, whatever. There's still the dailies that you can do to progress. You still have your collection level that goes up, and that's how you unlock new cards. Like everything that I do in the game, whether I jump on and play one game or if I play for like an hour, right? I feel like I'm progressing and like I'm achieving something and that I'm unlocking things that either are making my deck better or giving me more options or, you know, like there's a reason to bite every day. Whereas like, I think that it would be pretty easy, especially like if you're somebody who plays as much as Chuy, right? To like kind of do everything there is to do and then be like, well, now I'm sitting here until December. And the only reason to play is
Chuy's
to
got
play.
Something new now, right? You've got X rank matches, so you can go and check out like the new X battles. How do you feel about those?
I mean, the rank system in this one, I've got complaints about it, mostly because like people can go up in rank after like 2 wins, especially in the early stages, like 2 of the 5. Like, I don't know, there's some issues with it. So my worry with it is like, it's not gonna be a big change from what the whole system is right now, which is like eventually, if people play long enough, I feel like they'll hit S plus rank and be able to unlock X rank battles, especially in the case where a lot of the people who do rank up, suddenly the competition maybe just got a little bit easier for everybody who's left, and then they'll be able to rank up due to that. So I don't know, the system itself feels like a lot of people are going to get funneled into a rank that maybe they shouldn't be in, and overall everybody will feel like, oh, there's players who aren't on my level, regardless of what level that is, and it just makes this game feel unfair, you know so that's my complaint about it. But honestly, like, I am excited about it because I do think I'm hoping they kind of give you a different power depending on mode again. Because right now it's also like, oh, people can avoid clam blitz completely because maybe it's a mode they just like don't understand, can't get the hang of, and suddenly they're like, oh, all I'm really good at is Rainmaker. That's all I play whenever it's on, and people are ranking through those ranks by only playing that one mode, and to base like your entry into X rank on that makes it kind of like, oh, should this person actually be X rank? But if that said, if that stuff's all split and like you do get like a different audience for each mode once again, like they did in Splatoon 2, then I'm like, oh, okay, that might be better overall for the experience for players. So
I hope so.
Heard about it.
And like some of the new weapons coming back look cool. I'm glad to see some of the
There's some brand new
returning, and we've got
weapons.
some new ones. Yeah.
There's a brand new shooter.
I never play as a charger or a roller, so the shooter maybe will be the only one that I'll check out. Cause
rollers I can't do. Chargers are a little bit better, but not my first picks. But both they showed off the new charger, new roller in the thing. Not really what their kits will be, and one of the returning weapons was kind of highlighted, the Tentatech splatter shot with splat bombs, which Nintendo's just saying, just play splatter shot. They're always good. It's always just the weapon to play. So continuing that trend.
Yeah,
with the T-Tech.
They did show the new Goofy R shooter in the trailer. It just looks like another shooter. I just have to figure out what the set is, what the RNG is on it, and all that stuff. I'm sure people will go to town on the meta of it whenever it drops.
Yeah, so I think I like it just because there's going to be some new stuff, and I'm like, well, I'm playing this game anyways. Give me some new stuff while I play. But yeah, I totally understand people dropping off from it because it is like, even for people who play regularly like me, I'm just feeling like this is too slow. We're not getting these updates soon enough, and it just doesn't feel like it's trying to keep the community of players there.
Yeah, I just
feels like that's a case with all Nintendo games.
I was gonna,
that was
it feels like a symptom of a larger disease.
Stuff like ARMS,
like
it really is. Like, you look at Animal Crossing, like that was the biggest complaint everyone had at the launch of that. It was like, well, where's the new content? Like, am I just sitting around doing nothing for 6 months? And then it's like, oh, now you can go in the sea, and it's like, cool, that's really cool. Or like, what's next? Like, give us a roadmap. And like they've told us with this one, they gave us that roadmap, which as Pete said, though, that's a really good thing, but the roadmap's just not coming out at quick enough pace. People really expect like content, especially in their multiplayer games, to be coming out at a really rapid pace.
They gave that roadmap for the Mario Kart DLC, and we're still like, oh, we've gotten 2 packs of it. There's supposed to be another one now between now and the end of the year, but when? Who knows?
There is, because there's like a festive track that's coming, so that's definitely that's definitely coming.
Which is great, but it's just like, I don't know. It just speaks to like this larger problem, not only with like how they treat multiplayer games or games as a service or whatever, but I think it's just like, I think for a really long time Nintendo has gotten away with things about their strategy being antiquated because they just make games that are so good. But I don't think they can compete when it comes to multiplayer stuff because they're just not willing to get with the times. And like the unless you have an extremely dedicated, diehard community that's willing to stick around and deal with that, they're gonna just move on to other stuff, right? Whether it's Fortnite or Warzone or Multiverses or Marvel Snap or whatever, right? Like, there's so many other multiplayer experiences right now. They are a dime a dozen, and most of them are free. and you can just start them. And if you already have friends that are playing, it's like, you know, like,
And I do think they're aware of it. I think because we have gotten the reports of them buying more land to grow their development stuff,
Yeah.
but it's like that's not something we're going to see the benefits from till that building's actually done in like 5 years,
Right.
and then actually they've hired everybody to be in there and start
They just
making
need to buy
stuff,
someone. Just buy a team that's
Yeah,
really good at this
they're
stuff. I don't understand
surprisingly.
what.
Kit and Krista had a conversation about this kind of recently because somebody had asked about like, just acquisitions and that sort of thing because it's such commonplace at this point. But all they really said was just like, yeah, we're kind of surprised at Nintendo's reluctance to acquire some of these studios, and
It's just really strange. Like they could
Mm-hmm.
they could like buy the team behind Multiverses and just instruct them to work their magic on all of their games instead. Like I just don't understand what
or again, like,
I really
what their
do like what
reluctance
they
there
did
is.
with Multiverses, right? Where like you poach a person and then be like, build a team, you know?
true. Yeah, and I don't know if it's like their culture and just like how they approach those things as a company, but I don't know. I don't see them like getting any faster with all of this stuff. They've been slow for the last 30 years. They've been making games, 40, I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm surprised. Honestly, like I am surprised they got to even this point where they're like, "Oh yeah, we can update games and add content later," because that even seemed like something they took up on very
Yeah,
late in the
yeah.
game. So
Yeah, it just
we'll
feels
see.
like they're like hitting the same innovations people hit like 2 generations ago, and it's like you guys gotta pick up the pace a little bit because it's like when it comes to the single player stuff, like put out another Switch. You put out a Switch successor that runs well, and I'll stop complaining. But when it comes to multiplayer, like I really think they need to just totally re-examine the way that they think about multiplayer, or stop making multiplayer games. At least competitive, games as a service. Right?
Yeah, which is like, a space they're only so in. I would say they're still not even in it with Smash in a lot of ways because they don't really support that
But they
community.
should be, and
Yeah,
it's
they
like,
should. They
That
should,
could be such
and
a massive esports thing for them. Like it really could. Like
Mhm.
there's
they could
already a
own
scene that
fucking-
was
people are
totally,
there.
it's been built independently of them because the fucking passion
know.
is there. All they need to do is acknowledge it. They could do this, like, it's the same thing with Pokemon, right? Like, it's like there's the Worlds event and everything that the Pokemon
Pokemon's
company
there.
runs, and it's like, why isn't that a bigger thing? Like, why don't you promote that more? Like, why don't you,
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just, it feels like they
or make a game like Pokemon Showdown at some point.
Or that's
It's like
the
it
whole
feels like
point,
that
right?
should be
And just
something
lean
they
into
did
it
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
market for this here, like, again, you could just hire the fucking independent people that make it for free.
Do what Sega
already
did
doing
with
it,
Sonic
yeah.
Mania, right?
Yeah,
Hire the
just
people
put
that
it on
made
Switch
the indie games
and leave it free, like whatever, like
That's
like
what's amazing about like Mario and Rabbids, just like hearing the story of that and Nintendo going like, "Did we give you models for Mario to use? Like, this looks really good." Just like they need to. I don't know. I guess there's a name. Ubisoft's obviously behind that, and there's a name behind it. But yeah, I don't know. I really want to know what their reluctance is with some things because I know they've acquired places like Monolith Soft, and as you kind of dig into that company, you're like, oh, this place kind of helps with a lot of different Nintendo games outside of like making their own. So I kind of wonder what they look at in terms of like what they want out of companies that they eventually acquire.
Yeah. I think it's literally just companies that they think they can't live without.
Mm-hmm.
It's like recognizing that like without Monolith Soft we would be in trouble. And it's like we'll put out Xenoblade every 5 years or whatever, and that's a cult classic, and then they polish every other game that we make in the interim, right? Like
they've touched everything.
Like Breath of the Wild wouldn't be
wild.
Breath of the Wild without Monolith Soft, right? Like they don't get nearly enough credit for that.
Yeah,
but
so
is what it is, I guess. So I guess we'll see. Maybe we'll do some streams. We'll see if we can get back into Splatoon 3, but I don't know, guys. I think it's time. I think I'm just
We
ready.
need to do Mario Party. Just forget it.
That's
Just
what we gotta
Mario
do.
Party.
All right, fine.
Mario Party 1 and 2. Let's
Forget
do
it.
that.
We're not gonna play Splatoon 3.
We gotta see if that's better.
DLC first. I want DLC for Superstars. Just
Reject modernity. Play retro games.
Yeah, forget the new games. Old games are fine.
My game of the year is Mario Party 2.
Best release of 2022.
There you go. All right. So if you want to let us know your thoughts on Nintendo at the Game Awards or how you're getting on with Splatoon 3 or any of Nintendo's, I guess, ongoing games as a service, multiplayer, whatever, right? Hit us. Let us know what you're thinking. If you're agreeing with what we're saying, we'd love to hear from you. If you're disagreeing with what we're saying, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us we don't know what we're talking about. Tell us that you play your Switch every day and that Splatoon 3 is God's gift to man. You know? Let's do it. So, again, like I said, if you want to show your support, you want to get involved, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find links to all the places you can find us all over the web. Become a Patreon supporter right in the show. However you choose to get involved, we appreciate you. For the crew, I've been Pete, he's been Chuy, he's been Steve. Wait, he's been Chuy, he's been Steve. We'll see you next week.